welcome to a very special video which I am going to be calling Illuminati Chronicles Special Features. In this video, I will be explaining some of the questions you may have when watching my Illuminati Chronicles series, which there is a playlist of on my channel. And if you're watching this video, I assume that you've seen at least one of the videos on there, so that's why I'm not going to be going into many of the plot details here. This video will more be about the behind the scenes stuff, basically the why behind the what. With that said, let's get started. So, point number one, why are there science video projects in the first two films? Basically, what happened was there was this science project that I had to do for my old school, and we were making videos for it, and as I was documenting the first film with the giant plane, I was editing the video, and I found that in the background on somebody's plane, they stuck the face of the principal at my old school. They stuck his face onto the wing of the plane. And I did like this kind of thing where at the end of the video, it was like, oh, he was there all along, kind of like this big inside joke that like everybody was laughing about. And that's basically where the whole series evolved from. We made science videos once every term, so then for the next term, they wanted me to do the same thing. But then, after that, I got really carried away with it and I turned it into its own story, its own offshoot spin-off thing that wasn't even related to the science video. They said if I wanted to make that story I'm talking about, they'd only let me do that if I incorporated it into the science video. They wouldn't let me use the school cameras for anything other than like a school project. I couldn't go off and like make a whole movie with it. It had to all be tied around like education and like school projects, blah blah blah. So that's why in the second movie I kept cutting away because it really had nothing to do with the science video at all. That's basically the reason people liked to watch them, is because the science video stuff was kind of boring and they were always waiting for like that Illuminati thing in the background to catch their interest again. Like it was just entertaining. And that's why they all like to watch it. You wouldn't really get that if you weren't from my school, but that's basically how it was. And that brings me to point number two, which is, why is the third film animated? After I made the first two, I really wanted the teachers to let me use the video cameras for something other than a school project, but they really wouldn't budge because like I didn't want to supervise everything and you know, it's just too much of a hassle. So I kept trying to push them to like, I wanted all the people who had shown up in my first two movies to show up in the third one, but they didn't have time. They couldn't work it into their schedule. And this is why the third movie took a lot longer to make than the first two, because I had to write a script and everything for the third movie. And it went through so many rewrites because I wasn't sure if I was going to get the same actors to be in the third one that were in the first two. Because the first two were kind of just like fun little jokes, and I tried to get it away from the science video stuff, but it still had to be there. And I really thought that if I could convince them, they'd let me make the third movie its own thing. Like that was going to be like the big finale, the big payoff. And especially for the third one, a little bit for the second one too, because the first one was still connected to like science video stuff. Second one, a little, it tried to branch off. But the third one was my attempt at an actual film. It wasn't just a science video to me. It took me an entire year to make, and because nobody would get involved if it wasn't a school project, I had to do the whole thing on my own. So that's why I came up with the idea to make it animated, because I wasn't going to get anyone to participate, because I didn't want it to have anything to do with those science videos from the first two films. So I didn't know it was going to be animated at first. Like those animations that you see in the third film are actually, that they were originally intended to be storyboards. But then when I realized that I had to do it on my own, I used some of those storyboards in the actual movie. Like obviously I didn't just use storyboards because it needed to have like a certain level of quality, otherwise people wouldn't really get into it. Like it basically just looked like crap if I only used the storyboard. So like the only storyboards I used were the ones that I thought were up to scratch. The rest of them I had to like redraw and make look better, and I also made like lip animations to give it a little more legitimacy. And then the hardest part I think about making the third film is that I had a severe time limit. I know I said I had an entire year to make this movie, but it came right down to the line right as I was finishing it, because it was almost at the end of the school year, and I knew that if I didn't finish it, then I wouldn't be able to show it to like all my class who had enjoyed the first two movies. So I'm not exaggerating when I say this. Making that, and like especially finishing the third film, was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, like regarding anything. Like I don't say that lightly, but I am pretty proud of how especially that one turned out to be. And that leads me to my third point, which is, what are my personal opinions on each of the films in the trilogy? Basically, the first two I don't look back on as being like, oh, these were great achievements of like, they were masterpieces, like, because I don't want to sound like a pretentious like jerk, because they're not really. They're just kind of, I was having fun with them basically. It was an inside joke at my school. But that's also why the third movie especially, I made it so that it like would have nothing to do with that stuff and anybody could watch and enjoy it. It would stand on its own, while also serving as a finale to the first two movies. And I wanted it to be like my greatest thing that I've done as a filmmaker, because I consider myself to be a filmmaker. Like my family would especially say, they're like, it really gave me OCD about getting every single thing in the animation right. And like, it meant a lot to me. Like, I know it sounds dramatic and all, but I just have to be honest. I really went all out on the third one. And I believe that the amount of effort you put into something is the amount of reward you get out of it, if it succeeds. That's why, for me, the third film is my personal favorite. So, thank you for watching this video. I hope this explains some things to you that you might have had questions about. If you enjoy my content on my channel, look at my other videos. Take it out. Peace.